So in summary, Adam again needs to get a little bit more rhythm with his footwork. Make sure he's loading before the release and kind of slow that front foot down. The back foot needs to fire a little stronger into and against the front side, and it needs to fire a little sooner. In other words, it needs to fire before that heel gets down. Okay. On the front side, front foot is bailing open. We want to land in basically the same position with that front side that we started in. Okay, meaning front foot closed, front knee closed, front hip closed, front shoulder, and the eye is still there. Okay. We might create a little extra tilt in the front hip, which Adam's already doing a pretty good job of tilting there. Okay, he's staying fairly closed on the upper side, but the front knee we need to get under control. And then the back arm, he's got to be able to load the back arm by lifting the elbow and keeping it bent, slotting it to the ball and keeping it bent, and keeping the hands here near the shoulder, palm facing pitcher. Okay, with the barrel stacked on top of the hands. And then we finish the swing, once that elbow has loaded and then slotted to the ball, we finish the swing by firing that top hand from the shoulder through the ball, making contact, and then firing the top hand over the top right after contact with the ball. All right, take a look here at Adam. Adrian Gonzalez here, flipped around to the right side, and this is Drew Macias, the Padres and the Diamondbacks. Okay, taking a look here first at Adam's setup. He's loose and relaxed. There's a lot of intent there to attack the ball. He looks very confident, in his setup. And he's he's an aggressive kid. In terms of feet look good, straight ahead. You might want to see this back foot maybe aligned a little bit better with the front foot, a little bit closed off there. That's not bad. Knees are bent, and in front of the feet. Waist is in that one click bent position. He looks pretty good there. And the hands are around shoulder height. So that's a pretty good setup. In terms of his stance, I don't see a whole lot that we have to change there. We might want to maybe bring the hands a little closer to the shoulder in the sense that we don't want this elbow to widen, and we'll see how wide he gets with that later. We really want to feel like that hand stays close to that top shoulder as we that back shoulder as we get going. And you can see he kind of does drop his hands to where it's at a level even with the shoulder. So we might be better with a slightly lower, setup with his hands as he gets started. He's kind of bringing them down here. We'd probably be better off starting about right here, with his hands and going from there. Okay, let's go ahead and focus in on our three areas again. Back leg, back arm, and front side. We'll start off with the back leg, which again should control our footwork. In other words, the reason that we stride, the reason we lift our foot is so we can load this back leg, and then as that back leg attacks the pitch, it's unloading. So our footwork is basically a load and unload mechanism for that back leg. Okay, so in taking a look at how he loads the backside again, we always want to see that back leg get loaded before the release of the pitch, which again means that foot is going to come up at some time before the pitcher lets go of the ball. He may be a little bit late there with that, and there could probably be a little bit more. It's a little jumpy, there needs to be a little bit more rhythm with it. Your feet should feel slow, which is going to create fast hands. It should feel slow and smooth through there. Shouldn't feel jumpy at the pitcher. And again, we want to feel ourselves, go back before release. You can see, Adrian starts a little sooner than what Drew does, but the absolute rule of going back before the release of the pitch applies. And you can see that there's just a little more rhythm with the way they're loading and unloading with their footwork. Footwork should feel slow and in sync with the pitcher. Adam's a little jumpy there with the way he's kind of getting started. The front foot should move slower. And again, really, we want to feel like the back leg's in control of that. In other words, we want to feel like the back leg kind of pulls it up as it loads, and the back leg puts it down as it unloads. And I feel like Adam's a little jumpy there with it. So there's really just two parts to the back leg: the load and the unload. Obviously, the back leg's loaded now. All the weight's on the back side. The foot's off the ground. The weight's on the back side. We need to, again, smooth that out a little. And then he doesn't, as this heel lands, this back leg should be unloading into that front side. And I don't really see him, unloading the back leg. There should be a strong, lateral sideways press, into that front side. And this feeling that the back load, the back leg has unloaded, its energy into and against that front side. And I feel like Adam's really holding a lot back there. In other words, at this point, I don't feel like that back leg has had quite the intent to drive off. Okay. Now, I do think that his the intent with his leg is to drive weight sideways, And obviously through there, he's not trying to force spin of the back leg. Again, as we land, we want those toes facing, straight ahead. And then, we want to, if that leg's going to come through, we want to allow it to come through. We don't want to force turn on that back leg. The intent is to drive sideways, and he's not overspinning the foot there. But I would just like to see his unload happen, begin to happen a little sooner. Before that heel gets down. It's like heel's down, and now that back leg, starts to go. Now, I mean, he's unloading it here into that front side, but it's not as strong as it needs to be. So again, very simple plan with the back leg to load and unload laterally. For Adam, there needs to be a little more rhythm there, and the unload needs to happen a little more forcefully and a little sooner. We want that feel like that back leg is unloading before the front heel drops. There's really no issue with that foot not turning over, really. Jim Thome hit, all 500 of his home runs that way. Bonds hit many of his home runs that way. That back foot doesn't have to come over. That's not an energy producer. That back leg is finished. If you look at Adrian, at this point, that back leg is done. It's off the ground through that point, so it's not applying any force. Now, I think if that leg fires a little more forcefully and a little sooner, that's going to unweight that back leg a little more, and we probably will wind up getting a little bit more turn out of that, back femur, which is then going to pull the back foot around. But that's not the issue. The issue would be just to press sideways a little sooner and a little bit harder. Okay. All right. Now taking a look at the front side, which again, if we take the player and we divide them in half, we want to just look at what's going on that front side. From the head all the way through the front ankle, and we don't really want to see a whole lot of change in the hitter. From the time he starts with his front side to when he lands, and you can see. Adrian, foot is still square, knee is square, hip is square, shoulder square, eye is still in the same place and position. Now we start to see, a little bit of tilt in the front torso, which is going to kind of at the front hip really that is going to kind of bring us into a slightly more tilted position than maybe we started with. Okay. But other than that, the front side is really in the same position it was in when it started. The only thing that's changed by the time the front heel lands, ideally, is that the back leg has loaded and unloaded. Okay, so we're really talking about the back half here. The back leg has loaded and unloaded, and that elbow is worked up into the ball. The top hand's in the same place. So the elbow is worked in, and that's really all that we're talking about there.